Well, good morning. How y'all doing? It's Monday and it's time for another garden tour, and today we're going to check out the urban salad bed garden that we converted to a sweet potato garden and a couple of other cool things that we've got going on. Well, welcome back. So if you notice, it looks like my squash has disappeared over here, but I'm actually kind of under the belief system that they were getting a lot more sun, them and the tomatoes, than maybe they needed to. And the reason why is because of this tomato right here on the patio. Because if you look at this tomato, it doesn't look anything like the rest of the tomatoes that I've got going. It's very happy, it's very bushy, it's very full. None of the leaves are curling. And this plant really only gets a little bit of afternoon sun directly. Otherwise, it just gets a little bit of what's around. It doesn't get any real direct sunshine until late afternoon. And then a lot of times we pull down the shade, and so it gets a little bit more protection there. So because of that, that's why we've moved the pallets from this area right here, and we've moved them over here, because about where this pallet is sitting is where the shade line starts to come in. So all this gets a lot of sun in the morning, and then around noon it starts to kind of turn into a dapple shade over there. So we're looking to see if that's going to give us a little bit of improvement with those plants, and we'll run over there in just a second and check those out. But we're going to start at bed 3 and then make our way back around to the side garden. You know, every day I wonder if things are doing good or if they're doing bad. I've got this one spaghetti squash in there that's a female. Got pollinated last week, but it's not getting really big, and maybe I just need to be patient. But we've got lots of blooms opened up. It's 64 degrees and I'm just freezing my tail off, and I'm sniffling and my eyes are watering. This butternut, last week I found a female right here, but the bloom kind of dissipated. I wonder if the nights are just getting a little chilly, but you can see we've got lots more flowers. And I was letting this run on the ground, but I got it worked into this cage, just like kind of like the spaghetti squash here. Seems so happy kind of climbing up the side of that. So I'm gonna get that one going that way. This pepper's getting a little bit of shade. This plant is starting to look a little bit better in the center after I got some fertilization going on. This back here is pretty happy too. It's been making some flowers, and we've got seeds coming up here on the mustard green. So this will pass away soon and we'll get to harvest those seeds. I did take out this leaner just because we weren't going to keep it for seeds, and it was laying all the way down on the ground. This pepper right here is getting eaten by something, but it almost looks a little bit more like a, oh, nope, there it is right there. See it? We couldn't find it the other day, but there is the one that's eating this off. So we'll just take that whole leaf off and then smash it and see if there's anything else. But see how fast, I mean, we've been watching this all weekend and we cannot find that little guy on there, and it's kind of eating up this pepper plant, but it'll come back, so we're not going to freak out and pull it. And this little jerk is going to hopefully get eaten by a bird here in a minute, so we'll just leave it out right there as an invitation for our bird friends. This tomato, I have no clue what it is. It's looking happy as all get out, and we're still letting this old lady work through her lifespan so we can get these awesome seeds. And I just can't get over how thick that base is. I mean, look at that, that's just crazy. And what's that coming out there? Is that all new foliage wanting to come out? Who knows? Another thing is that we moved the watermelon back here. I don't know if it was fertilizer, I don't know if it was the sun, but it got kind of crinkled up here, and as soon as we moved it over to this spot, it just got happy again and it started making all kinds of flowers. So I like it being over here, and it can work its way up this trellis. This little Anazi bean is looking pretty happy It's got some flowers on it in there and a little bit of something going on with the leaves. But again, I'm not gonna get too messed up about it. The strawberries still got its weird little dinky strawberries, and this crookneck that we fertilized last week looks really good. This one kind of makes me wonder if it didn't get fertilized so great, and there's some more male flowers coming up. So this one is looking really nice. It's like everything went through a nutrient thing last week, but with what's coming in the middle from after me fertilizing, seems really happy. Everything over here is kind of fading away a little bit. We planted some more sunflowers, different kinds of sunflowers over here this weekend. So as long as we can keep this good and watered, then hopefully we'll get some more flowers coming in. But otherwise, until then, these pretty cornflowers are what's keeping it looking nice over here. This bed is looking a little bit happier. If you remember last week, I told you I was going to take out all of the, what was it, radish. And I did. I took all the radish out. And these plants are all starting to look a little bit happier too. It's almost like, I don't know if they really enjoyed companioning with the radishes, because since I took the radishes out, everybody's looking happier. This right here is like a hokey little volunteer of the Texas red cherry. It looks really weak right now. It's like I literally pulled it out of the ground over there and stuck it in the ground here just for the fun of it. I've actually got a better looking one that if this one doesn't survive, I'll just put it over here. Speaking of volunteers, we're flush on the tomato volunteers, and here's another one coming up here in, you know, what used to be a compost pile where all the cosmos were growing. Now we're going to talk a little bit about these two squash. I have no clue really what happened here, but this is the shadiest place come afternoon, so I just thought I would bring these over here. I've got extras of these plants, so if they don't survive, I'm not, you know, gonna cry and stop gardening or anything. But I did want to move them over here into more of a shady area, and I might even end up putting them over in the side yard. But all the little flowers in there are looking happy, and look at that mammoth just getting taller. Now, like I said, we moved the tomatoes and peppers because look at this tomato. Now these leaves up here, the newer growth, this all looks like what we see over on the patio. Same with here. So this is all the growth that we've got since we moved into the shade, and since we got some extra nutrients going. So hopefully this ends up being a good place for all this. This is another one that looks really happy. A nice bouquet of blooms coming in there. And most of these have been managing as far as worms go, but there's one over here that got kind of taken in a great deal by the worms. And there's the middle of that sunflower coming along. This one is going to end up doing its thing, but for right now it's still kind of the runt of the bunch. Pretty Cosmo's still making a good show in there. I think this is a great white. It really hasn't done a whole lot for us, but hopefully these cooler temperatures and some extra nutrients. Now these over here, that's a little female coming along there. These are all looking happier with this beautiful new green growth coming out. You can still see here where we had the nutrients come off a little bit, but happiness there in the center. Oh, I forgot to tell you something. I'll show you in a minute, but I had to pick this one Cherokee Purple because it had burr, which is blossom inrot, and I'm leaving this one. This one looks okay if you look at the bottom of it. That's normal what's going on the bottom. It's not burr, but I'll show you in a minute what burr looks like. This one's looking okay. It's got a couple of flowers. We've got a little spider living here in the middle, but you know what? Spiders trap bad guys. Now this beauty, our Punta Banda, it came under seeds this weekend, and we pulled off a green hornworm about that big, but we got it off before it ate everything. So hopefully here in the next week or so, these will all turn green and we'll get to try them out. This cherry is just awesome. I mean, and it's got really beautiful cherry tomatoes. They're not too small, they're not too big, and just looking wonderful. Now that right there almost looks like some worm poop. That's how we discovered that these were getting eat up, is because Dale, my husband, saw some of the brown poop on the leaves. But this is too high up and it's kind of a part of the plant, so I don't know if it's an egg. I just scratched it off, so maybe if it's an egg I'll get it off. But this is looking awesome and I can't wait to taste these. I moved the herbs over here against the wall. The oregano is really just going crazy. It might be trying to bolt on me. This way they're going to get a little bit more shade in the afternoon, and I'm going to pay a lot better attention to the amount of water that they're getting, because containers can lose a little bit more water than the beds or obviously the ground, and this mint should have just gone crazy by now. So I think a little afternoon shade and some extra water, and these are going to be super happy. I wondered what I did with this crazy carrot that I pulled out over here. I guess I left it here, but it was growing on the other side of that tomatillo. Now look down here at the bottom of the bed. This is how tenacious nature can be. These are some of those tomato volunteers from that same Texas wild cherry, and they're growing out of the bottom of the bed. We had one over there and one in there and one over there, and I've moved all those, and in the midst of it this one popped up. Now we did have a huge bowl of lettuce this past week, but the lettuce just don't care, and it's just popped right back up doing its own thing. Over here looks like this isn't necessarily just a cucumber, it's an Armenian cucumber, because this bad boy has been going like crazy, and this is what Armenians look like. And this is a little baby one. So the ants are helping us a lot with getting this pollinated over here, so we're grateful for that, and it's loving its climb up. Here's one that can kind of be worked in a little bit more because it's trailed all the way up in front of and by the tomatillo. Now I'm calling this cantaloupe, but kind of it also looks a little bit like cucumber, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. The tomatillas are really starting to bush out this other side, so they're looking pretty happy, and there's a little bee in there buzzing around looking for somewhere to hang out. The bees have really been loving sleeping in these blooms. I've got some neat pictures of that. And so now we've just got the pretty flowers up here making everything look nice. And again, I saw a baby on here, like a female. It's over there, see it? But it kind of went away. It didn't never even open up. But I know there's a lot of good stuff going on in there, and we're gonna get at least one of those pollinated. Now, here's the tomato that was getting blocked out by all the kale that was here, but I noticed that the kale was getting overrun with worms and aphids, so I just took it out. And so now this tomato's got a lot of room, it's happy. I got a little watermelon down here. I got it pollinated last week, but it really hasn't jumped off like I thought it would. But this plant's getting a lot happier, and I'm kind of getting it weaved up into this so it'll climb. This okra is finally starting to look a little bit happier, and looks like it'll just go on and do its own thing. Now, again, the cooler temperatures have really woke up the nasturtia, so I came in here this weekend to pull off a bunch of seeds, but a lot of it was just blooming, so I got some seeds off, but not as many as I would have liked to. Now we're gonna go over here and check out my big new thing, and that's my sweet potato bed. But before we do, we're gonna cut over and check out the footage from yesterday when we were putting this bed together, and then I'll show you what it looks like now. Okay, so I've got this bed obviously pretty well cleaned out. I harvested a couple of more seeds of lettuce. You can see some kind of fell down here in the bed, and but oh well, they can be there. And so then you see I took the bottom or the sides from another pole that I had and came in and tucked it as best as I could into the soil, and I'm hoping the next layers of soil will make it stay even better, because this the salad garden bed, if you look at this, this is like a chopstick. So this is only how deep the bed is, so to speak. And you know, for sweet potatoes, just in case, that's probably okay, but we really want to have a lot of good success, so we're gonna make it as deep as this blue rim, which should add another 6 inches or so to this bed. And so maybe we'll have a real good success with our sweet potatoes. So we're gonna set up here in a minute, and we're gonna get a layer of, we're just gonna build layers. So we're gonna do a layer of azomite in here, we're gonna do some manure, then we're gonna come back in with a compost garden time mix, and then we're gonna finish off with a little bit of manure on top, and we're going to plant our sweet potato slips. So we'll be back in just a second. So we got some azomite put down, and then we put like a 64 quart bag of garden thyme and about a bag and a half of manure. We layered it in there, and we kind of watered it in, and we watered the first, what was the first layer of the kiddie pool really well, so that it was good and soaked, because all of these sweet potato slips have been sitting in water all this time, so we want to make sure that they go into a really wet environment. So now I'm going to start layering these, working these slips in all around the bed, and in the very middle we're going to plant a volunteer cherry tomato that we found over there, and just see what happens. So I'm going to get planting. Since we want these to kind of run along the bed, I'm going to kind of work to get my hole kind of like at an angle. Instead of working to plant it straight up and down like that, I'm gonna kind of make a little angle here in the soil, going down instead of trying to plant it going up. So I'm just gonna lay it kind of in there like so, and just work the soil back over the roots there like that. So now we're gonna kind of train this to just lay here across the ground. I might even put some little small rocks, because we want this to grow along and start joining up with the soil, so that more roots will come off of the individual leaves. So we put that one there, and I'll come over here, and again, even on these little ones that, like when I pulled this one out, if you were vining it, you know, I might look to make it planting where it would go straight up and down. But since I'm going to try and get them to run across the bed, I'm going to shoot for just going at an angle into the soil. And I've never done this before. But this is when I watched Hollis and Nancy do this in his buckets. He kind of planted his at an angle, even though he was making his vine and not run. So that's kind of what I'm following after, was the way he did that. So again, as this opens up, it'll just crawl around. So now maybe I'll come over here and put one more over here to the side. Just move her over a little bit. And this one's a little bit smaller, so I'm just gonna lay it in there like that. Just come back with the soil, and oh, a little bit of that still poking out. You don't want any of this, the roots poking out in any way. So now I've got all that dirt work back up there. And so that's 3 that we got. I've still got about 3 more over on the, or maybe 6. I think I about have 6 more on the table. But I want to see how these do. And I've got a friend on Instagram that lives in Glendale and gardens, and I told her that if she wants to grow some, then I'd probably give some to her too. Because once this gets going, I mean, they're gonna take over the bed. So there we are. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So maybe I'll go grab one more and stick it in over there. Okay, so I got one more slip, And this is one of our volunteer wild Texas cherries that we found over there by bed 1. And I just had it soak overnight in water. And I'm going to pluck these off and I'm going to bury it. Maybe I'll even bury it up to about right there. And I'm going to put it in the middle. So we'll lay it right there. Let me get this little guy put in over here. And it's a cloudy day out today, so this is, I feel like, a real good time for us to be getting these in. And it's going to be pretty mild temperatures this week. Even though these like heat a lot, I just like the idea that they're going to get to transition in a situation that's going to be a lot more easy on them, so to speak. So I'm just plucking these little side leaves off. And then, well, actually, you know what? A lot of people believe in planting these on the angle and says that it'll make them stronger. So maybe for the heck of it, we'll do that this time. And my friend Justin over at, I think it's like Herbal Life or something like that. He works at the Summer Winds. He did a side-by-side where he planted his tomatoes on an angle like this, and it really does make them a lot stronger, because even though we're planting this at the angle, unlike the sweet potatoes, this will straighten up and it'll form roots all along there, so it'll end up being a pretty hardy little dill. So today is Sunday. Tomorrow morning when we do our tour, we'll get to see how these adjusted and if they're you know, liking their space, and then from there on out we've just got to see what happens. So we'll see you tomorrow for the garden tour. Well, welcome back. We're over here on this side yard and I'm super excited to show you what I've got going on. So this is how everything looks now. You got to see us put this together and get it built. Now when we first put these in here yesterday, you know, a couple of hours later they were looking super droopy, but just remember, that's to be expected when you transplant anything, and especially coming out of a very wet environment. It's expected that these are going to look a little sad, but by the time we went to dinner last night, they're all perked up. I mean, went to bed. By the time we were going to bed last night, everything perked up and was looking really happy. And again, this is another one of those volunteer wild Texas cherries. If it doesn't make it, it doesn't make it, but at least it's going to have a chance over here. So I've got these little rocks on here, which was really helpful with how windy it was yesterday. But this is just kind of keeping this down here to the ground, reminding it that it wants to run. And so we'll just have to see what happens. Out of all the sweet potato starts, I still have like almost 5 of them left. 2 of these I've promised, and the rest of these I've kind of offered up. We're probably going to do maybe 1 in a bucket. My husband wants to try it out. These are some of those nasturtium seeds I collected this weekend. And this is another one of those volunteers that I took from the bed over there. I've just got it soaking in water. And this is a cutting that I took from this cherry that's over here on the patio. And if you can see right there, it's starting to make roots on the end of that stem. So that's a way that we can propagate and make more plants, is by taking cuttings from our established tomatoes, putting them in water and letting them jump off, because that'll be the age of the plant. It's essentially a clone. But this is all I've got going right now as far as propagation, if you will. This is the Cherokee purple. See, this is all beautiful heirloom stuff going on here, and this is kind of where it went to cat facing, and that means it's split. But down here, this is the burr, this is the blossom end rod, so that means that there was either something off with the watering, that when the flower was being born. A lot of people think this is something that you can cure once it's happening, but this went on when this flower was forming. So I just don't flip out about this anymore. I rip them off and I go on with life, and you know, that's what we're gonna do with that. Well, I just want to thank y'all again for coming in every week or whenever you got time to check out what we've got growing. You see that, you know, we're always working through little things and finding out good big things, and so that's what you just got to do. You got to keep on going. I just want you to have the best day ever, and we'll check back with you next week.